Hey guys, welcome back to Learn Web API in 7 days course. In this video, we are going to talk about ASP.NET Web API attribute routing. So these are the things which we will be discussing in this lecture. Web API routing is actually how it matches the URI to an action, but then ASP.NET Web API 2.0 and onwards, it supports another type of routing which is called attribute routing. And in this type of routing, the attributes are used on the API methods. So this is one of the example, like how a route can be applied to API method. The benefit of having this attribute routing is in API versioning. We can do proper API versioning using attribute routing, and also we can overload URI segments, and then we can pass multiple parameter types also using attribute routing. So let's go to Visual Studio and see attribute routing in action. So before I actually start running it, I would like to point out a few things here. I have actually disabled this new template which we created. So I have my roots pointing to our old template, which is by default API, and then employee API controller and ID. So normally this is how our API calls used to routed when there were requests coming to API controllers. Now this thing is already there, but inside this API controller calls, we have defined a route for this API method, and in here I'm saying employee and then employee ID and then the category. So this is how I want the employee list to be pulled out from the database. Okay, now when the API call is coming in here, now this attribute route will be in picture. This will be applied. The routing dictionary is going to have this on priority, and this one here, this routing template will be ignored. Okay, now let's see how it works on the app, and you'll see how these calls are being made. So earlier, if you notice, we used to have this slash employee API and then employees and then call. Now see, that old API routing does not exist anymore, because we have defined attribute route on this particular API call in here in the API controller. Now we have to use this attribute route only, then only this method will get hit. Now let's change the API call here. I'm going to say employee and then the ID and then the category. So this is my new attribute route, which will help me reach this method here. Now I'm going to hit this. Now you can see here the controller is coming here. It's calling this method. Yeah, we got the data. Okay. So for each and every method in Web API controller, we can define a attribute route, and that route will actually tell us like which API method will be called. Now let's try to have a example of versioning. So I'll say this is my say version, and again this is version, and then this is category, and this is also category, and the same routing, same employee, and let's say this is employee list new. Now let's run this and see what happens. Yeah, it's saying I cannot find this because we have the same roots configured here. You see this? The root is exactly same. Now I'm going to change this. Now what I'm going to do is, let us say this is my old version v1, this is my new version v2, and then I'm going to get my employees for a particular category. Now let's run it and see what happens. So it's pulling it up. Yeah, it's opening the application. Let me go to post, try to do it. So first we will hit v1. Okay, you can see here it is coming to v1. So in my API it's calling the old version of my API controller. Now if I say v2 here, then it should call the new version. This is my v2. Let's put a breakpoint and see whether it comes here or not. Yeah, you see this, it is coming on this route. So actually this attribute route help us in defining the API versioning also. So it's quite useful, and this is it related to ASP.NET Web API attribute routing. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in next lecture.